retract their belief that Joe Biden was the lawful winner.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. President, everybody is on the line, and just so this is Mark Meadows, the Chief of Staff.
Meadows even arranged that key phone call between Donald Trump and Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger.
Mr. Secretary, I was hopeful that, in a spirit of cooperation and compromises, there's something that we can at least have a discussion to look at some of these allegations to find a path forward that's less litigious.
Meadows wants U.S. District Judge Steve Jones to dismiss the 2 felony counts he faces in Fulton County, or at the very least, move the state case to federal court, where the jury pool would come from multiple counties, not just Fulton, where Biden won 73% of the vote. But prosecutors called his request meritless and futile, pointing out he texted investigator Frances Watson December 27, 2020, asking if she could speed up her work if the Trump campaign assist financially. He also traveled to Cobb County, hoping to witness a signature match audit.
The trip to Cobb County, he says that was all his idea. He was in Atlanta visiting his kids, and he just thought it would be a good idea to go up there with his whole Secret Service group and see what was going on.
Did that seem believable to you?
No.
Raffensperger testified, as I said, late this afternoon on behalf of Fulton County. They are opposing this motion to have Meadows' case moved to
Naturally, they would.
Raffensperger talked about that January 2nd call and was asked, "Do you think you were talking to federal officials there?" And he said, quote, "Those were Trump campaign lawyers, so I thought it was a Trump campaign call." Now, Judge Steve Jones has to make a decision. We don't expect that this afternoon. He'll take all this testimony under advisement and hand down a decision that will certainly be appealed, no matter who wins or who loses. Reporting live from the federal building, Randy Travis, Fox 5 News.
Extension, just what our corrupt government wanted. Super Tuesday, I will appeal. So this morning, before the judge announced her,
his role involved setting up meetings and phone calls for the president. Also, meeting with state officials was part of his job. Meadows had arranged the phone call between Trump and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger on January 2nd, 2021. Trump attempted to get an official recount and said he was looking for more votes that would prove he beat Joe Biden. The call has been identified as the spark that led to Fulton County District Attorney Bonnie Willis's investigation. The prosecution asked Meadows about specific actions alleged in the indictment and whether those actions were part of his official duties. For example, the indictment alleges he traveled to Georgia in December 2020 to observe a signature matching audit. Meadows testified that he did attend and that it was within his responsibilities as chief of staff. However, he denied being involved in an alleged strategy to have then Vice President Mike Pence delay the electoral proceeding on January 6, 2021, and testified that it was the biggest surprise in the indictment. The judge's decision on this motion will affect at least 4 other co-defendants who filed similar motions, including Trump's former Assistant Attorney General, Jeffrey Clark. Clark is also facing an ethics case related to challenging the 2020 election results. Federal Judge Rudolph Contreras on Friday denied his bid to have the case put on hold while he defends against the Georgia case. And the judge overseeing a California disbarment case against Georgia defendant John Eastman has denied his request for a delay in the proceeding due to the Georgia indictment. In the Georgia indictment, Eastman has been painted as the architect of a plan to have Pence pause the certification of electoral votes. In California, he faces multiple ethics violations related to his role in Trump's challenge to the 2020 election results. All 19 defendants will be arraigned in Georgia on September 6. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
former President Trump is increasing his lead in the polls after the primary debate last week. Meanwhile, Vivek Ramaswamy is gaining steam. Here's what the polls say about the Republican primary.
Former President Trump now leads Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by a staggering 40 percentage points in the race for the Republican presidential nomination. That's according to a Reuters Ipsos poll, which closed on Friday after a primary debate Trump didn't attend and yet another indictment. The poll shows Trump now has 52% support from Republican voters. That's up from the 47% he received in a Reuters Ipsos poll in early August. DeSantis remains in second place with 13%. The Florida governor performed best during the first Republican primary debate last week. That's according to a different poll by Ipsos, conducted together with 538 and the Washington Post. That poll found that 29% of voters who watched the debate say DeSantis was the candidate who did best. Closely behind him is tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. 26% of voters say he performed best during the debate. However, in terms of general support from Republican voters, Ramaswamy has been doing better than DeSantis lately. Here's an average from 538 taken from 18 different polls. As you can see, DeSantis' numbers have been going down steadily since the start of the campaign. Meanwhile, Ramaswamy's numbers have been going up for the past 2 weeks, to the point where he's now head-to-head with DeSantis. The next Republican primary debate is scheduled to take place in a month. Republican primary elections are set to kick off in mid-January.
Will the House launch an impeachment?
As they are making the decision on who to elect in 2024.
And now, in terms of the Georgia case, lawyers for Mark Meadows are making their arguments to a federal judge in Atlanta today to move the case from state to federal. How would that impact the case?
It would certainly delay indefinitely the Georgia state case from proceeding forward. If the removal of the case to federal court divests the state court of jurisdiction. And so the case would be transferred to federal court, and the state courts in Georgia would lose their authority over that while the federal court case proceeded. So we'll wait to see on that. Certainly one possibility is that the outcome of the removal could be appealed, could be litigated even further. So that could further push off the timing of when the Georgia criminal cases would be allowed to proceed forward.
And now this Georgia case is on racketeering charges, different from all the other indictments. What does each side have to prove in this?
It's twofold. Well, first of all, President Trump and his co-defendants don't have to prove anything. They are entitled to the presumption of innocence under our Constitution. They are innocent until proven guilty, and it's the Fulton County prosecutor that has the sole burden to prove all of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the racketeering charge is basically two elements. One is that there was a criminal objective in mind that was brought by an organization of individuals. Now, I think the case is flawed for both of those reasons. The criminal objective allegedly was President Trump disagreeing with the outcomes of the 2020 election and then attempting to use legal means to challenge those results. That's not a crime. There's also no criminal organization at issue. A candidate and their lawyers and their consultants and their campaign is not an organized criminal entity. It's just a campaign. And so the theory of the racketeering charges that were brought by the Georgia prosecutor factually and legally are very thin. And what it just shows is another attempt to use the power of the criminal justice system to attack a political rival.
Robert Henneke, thank you so much for your time.
Great to be with you.
Later, over the weekend, he spoke about it again. Entity's Melina Weisskopf has more from Capitol Hill.
Recent comments coming from House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, as well as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, indicate that the House is gearing up towards launching an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. When asked directly over the weekend if he was planning to launch this impeachment inquiry once the House comes back in just 2 weeks from their recess in September, Speaker McCarthy had this to say.
If you look at all the information we've been able to gather so far, it is a natural step forward that you would have to go to an impeachment inquiry.
He said this in reference to findings from the Oversight, Judiciary, and Budget Committees. For example, IRS whistleblowers coming forward and saying that top DOJ officials stood in the way of their investigation into Hunter Biden's tax evasions regarding foreign income. There's also that recent testimony by Devin Archer, who's Hunter Biden's longtime business partner, who testified that Biden, when serving as vice president, did attend some dinners with Hunter Biden, as well as the foreign business associates that he was working with. But House Republicans say there are still many unanswered questions, and the administration is stonewalling their investigations, which is one reason why Speaker McCarthy says that an impeachment inquiry may be needed, saying that if they take this approach, Congress will have the tools to find this information that they're looking for. McCarthy has in the past already indicated that he was interested in an impeachment inquiry, which House Republicans say does carry some weight.
I don't think there's any question that him speaking to that has caused a paradigm shift, yes.
The chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, also commented that the House is very close to launching this impeachment inquiry, but he also stated that this would take the full support of the Republican conference, since no Democrats would support this effort. And there's also a roadblock, of course, in the Senate, where Democrats hold the majority. The House will return in 2 weeks, so we'll be waiting to see how they handle this, as well as a fast approaching September 30th deadline to fund the government to avoid a shutdown. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.